Do you ever see a successful woman on your feed or in a magazine and think, wow, it must be nice to have it so easy? Well, think again. Behind that glossy cover or smiling face is a ton of hard work, countless failures, and endless learning experiences. I'm Rebecca Minkoff, and I'm here to tell you that success isn't a walk in the park. It takes grit, resilience, and a willingness to take risks. That's why I created Superwomen, a podcast that peels back the varnish and gets into the nitty-gritty of what it takes to make it as a woman in today's world. From luminaries and game changers to women you've never heard of but should, this podcast is here to inspire you to take your next leap, no matter how daunting it may seem. We'll explore the sacrifices these women have made, the highs and lows they've experienced, and the lessons they've learned along the way. So if you're ready to be inspired and learn from some of the most successful women out there, join me on Superwomen. Together, we'll uncover the stories behind the successes and prove that with hard work, determination, and a little bit of luck, anything is possible. Hey everyone, you're listening to Superwomen. Today is a guest that I was so inspired when she interviewed me. She said something that kind of stuck with me. I had to find out more. Her name is Liz Claman, the Claman Countdown. She has an incredible podcast. Everyone talks to Liz. This is the episode where if you need some good advice, it's like every other sentence is a truth bomb. We talked about how she started, how she wanted to be an anchor journalist from a very young age, to now helming so many incredible shows and speaking with some of the brightest people in business. Take a listen. All right. I am sitting here in Liz Claman's incredible podcast studio that I wish I had.
It's my lair.
It's your lair. So if you see the graphics behind, she has opened up her lair so that I could get access to her rather than schlep her down to my offices.
Welcome.
Thanks for having me.
Anytime. It's thrilling to have you here.
So when you were interviewing me and you said something that kind of made me go, oh, I want to dig into this, which is how hard it's been and how much you had to fight to get a spot to where you're at today. So many people who listen and love you see the Liz Claman show. Oh, this is, she must have had this for a long time. But I'd love to start with your beginnings. What got you interested in this realm? And take me on a little bit of your journey.
When I was in 6th grade, my dad, I'm old, everybody. My dad came home with the very first iteration of a video camera.
Okay.
Now, I have 4 siblings. I have 3 older sisters. I'm the youngest girl. I insist they all call me the baby princess.
Okay.
And then my little brother Brooke arrived. We call him the Messiah. And it was like this Brady Bunch, let's do a skit, let's put on a show. And when we got that camera, I found that we were always fooling around. I wanted to be the one doing the interviews. And so I would ask my siblings to pretend they were Barbra Streisand or race car drivers, Roger Penske, whoever was famous at the time, Mario Andretti. And they would indulge me. Oh, you're a famous ballerina. Let me interview you. And so I started doing that and I thought, I love this.
Yeah.
But when I was even younger, I became the first girl in my elementary school to get her AV license. Okay, for those of you who...
I don't even know what that is.
Audio-visual.
Oh, I know what audio-visual is, but
Right.
What's a license?
Okay, you had to be able to operate the film strip.
Okay.
And the little projector, you needed to go through a training. They probably made the little fake cards in the principal's office just to make you feel like you were going through something. But I was the first girl to even want to do that. And I don't know why. It was just something within me.
Yeah.
My dad was a doctor. My mom was a Shakespearean theater actress. I somehow just suddenly decided I wanted to be the person asking the questions and be that conduit for other people.
Yeah.
Because I love digging. Mm-hmm. So continue to grow up, and I went to high school, and I became the editor of the yearbook staff. So that was sort of journalism.
Yep.
Beverly Hills High School.
Oh my
Hello?
God.
I mean,
I had the BHHS sweatshirts.
You did?
Yeah, I didn't go to Beverly Hills High School, but I thought it was like the coolest thing in the world.
you know our mascot is the Norman. Like, what is a Norman? It's a Nordic fighter.
Okay.
And I'm like, wait, so we always lost in football, but we won in screenwriting. And so I realized that I really like this journalism thing. When I went to college, I started taking a lot of journalism classes, but it wasn't until I had this one professor who had worked at ABC News in the 70s, and he regaled us with these stories of all kinds of things, like the early, sort of the end of the Vietnam War, but the early part of the 70s, fascinating stuff. And I realized I have to do this.
Yep.
He showed us all these, Edward R. Murrow, who was the original CBS News anchor, who's just the greatest of all time. He was the GOAT, and he showed us old broadcasts of that. And I thought, I got to do this, until I realized everybody wants to be a newscaster in this country. But I thought to myself, okay, so what makes me different?
Yep.
And honestly, Rebecca, there wasn't much. I wasn't exactly in your face. I wasn't this, jumping off the cliff to say, look at me, everybody. I wasn't particularly eloquent, and I was a little bit shy. Both my parents were Canadian born, and the way they raised us was to be very polite, because Canada. And
I do love that about Canada, though.
oh, yeah, they're amazing, amazing people. And it was don't make waves. If we came home and we said the teacher was mean to me today, my dad would say, well, have you ever thought that maybe she was having a bad day?
Yeah.
Well, that goes about this far. I'm making an inch with my thumb and my index finger here in the corporate world, or in the very vicious world of let me climb to the top of anything worth having.
Yep.
So I just thought to myself, I'll try. But, and then one day in my senior year, I was watching Miss America. I was watching the Miss America. And I was sitting there thinking, I'm going to be a newscaster. But I just happened to be watching. And the person who won was at my rival school that I'd gotten rejected from, Stanford. I was at Berkeley. She was blonde. I was a redhead. She was absolutely gorgeous. She was a virtuoso violinist. She won, and they're putting the crown on her head. She's crying, and they said, what do you want to be?
Oh, no.
And she said, I want to be a TV news reporter. And I'm sitting there in my sweats.
Eating some Doritos.
Oh, my God. Like the knockoff Doritos, not even the real ones.
Oh, my God.
And I thought, how am I going to compete against that?
Yeah.
You know what? I learned you tune it out. You don't look at other people as your competition. You look at a point on the horizon, and you never take your eyes off it.
That's
and
incredible.
That's what I did. And I kept saying, network. Not just, I'm going to be a newscaster in, Phoenix, or you got to start in a small market. I was so crazy. I just said, network. And I just put my eyes on that prize, and I started as an overnight production assistant at KCBS Channel 2 in Los Angeles, my local hometown station, where I was delivering newspapers, answering
Ain't
the
sexy.
phones. No. I was sorting the mail.
Yep.
I remember one anchor came up to me one day and said, you're sorting the mail? When I was your age, I was already on the air in Albuquerque, New Mexico. So here's my lesson. Number one, people are going to do anything to stick their foot out and trip you. Sometimes intentionally, sometimes not. Like, oh, that's really hard. Everybody wants to do that. Good luck. Or outright, well, you're really far behind. Tune it out.
Right.
Just smile to yourself and say, yeah, watch me.
I love that. It reminds me of the Pretty Woman moment, right? Where she's saying, big mistake, big. And
Big mistake.
Exactly. Okay, so you start out as a production assistant.
Yep.
And clearly your eye was on the mountain that you're on now. What were the steps you took to keep climbing?
First, I started picking the brains of every on-air talent whom I respected. Reporters, anchors.
At the station.
At the station. I'd say, can I have 5 minutes of your time? But first I would do something for them. Never just ask for a favor. Give something first, and then ask for the get.
You know what? Everyone needs to know that, because the amount of people that are just like, can you do this for me? And I'm always like, no, you're right. You have to do something for them.
I always reach out first, and I compliment somebody if I saw a good article about them. And then later I might say, hey, listen, I was wondering if you could come on the show.
Yeah.
It is really insulting to successful people when you just come up and say, gimme.
Yeah.
Really don't ever do that. So I would first make sure that I would say, hey, are there any research articles you need for your story today? And then be like, oh, that was nice. You were proactive. And then later, when they thanked me, I'd say, oh, you're welcome. If you ever have 4.5 minutes, I never say 5 or 10. I always say 4 or 3.
Yeah.
Because people will, they hear 5 and they hear 10, they're like, oh God, she wants 20. I always say 4 or 3 minutes, just to ask you 2 quick questions about how you got started. Nobody's going to say no to you for that.
Yeah.
At the time, those anchors were Paula Zahn, Ann Curry, Jim Lampley was a famous sportscaster, Pat O'Brien. And I first would just do a bunch of favors for them. Let me go out and get you that soundbite because you can't be in 2 places at once. Oh, thank you, Liz, so very much. And then I would ask them, how should I do this? How would I do this? And they all said, go to the Midwest. Go to the Midwest and learn and make your mistakes. And as you're talking to a Beverly Hills kid, my whole family was in LA.
Right.
Very comfortable life. If you want something, get over the discomfort of jumping off a cliff and not knowing how deep or shallow the water is beneath you.
Or if your parachute's going to work.
That's right. Because glory goes to those who take chances in life. And so I started applying to all different jobs. I mean, I sat there at KCBS probably a little longer than I should have, a year and 7 months. And finally I was like, okay, I'm done ripping scripts. I'm done getting sound bites for people. I'd worked my way up to field producer, but it's not what I wanted to do.
Yeah.
So I started applying to small markets and I got rejections over and over and over.
And when you applied, did you have to send in a video of yourself being on air?
Yep.
How you do the interview
And
or whatever
I
it is?
thought mine was so good, but all they saw was she's never been on TV before. She's some producer. She looks a little stiff on the air. I mean, I was like, Elizabeth Claman, Channel 2 News. Big smile at the end, even if it was like a murder, No. So I wasn't going to get hired on the tape. And I got rejections from Green Bay, Wisconsin, Madison, Wisconsin, all kinds of Midwestern towns.
Yeah.
Okay, most people give up. 50 rejections, forget it. I thought to myself, no, I'm just trying to go in the front door. I got to climb in a side window. There's got to be a different way. Do not keep doing the same thing if it is not working.
Yep.
So I went to a cameraman, a guy named Ray Hernandez, and I said, Ray, what do I do? And he's like, I'll tell you what you do. You're going to really small markets. Pick bigger cities, top 50 markets. They'll like your look because you're kind of a city girl. But study the town. Know everything about it. Know how to pronounce the rivers. Know how to be able to look at that news director in the eye and say, I know this town. I know why the mayor is fighting with the police chief. I know what happened a year ago and that it's the anniversary of that big building collapse. Study. Now, this is before the internet. So I had all these markets on my list. First alphabetically was Columbus, Ohio. Never been to Ohio. I, before the internet, picked up the phone and called the Chamber of Commerce. And I said, give me everything about Columbus, Ohio.
Oh, my God.
And I even remember ordering a newspaper and it took a week to arrive and it was a week old. But I learned a lot about the city. And then I bought my own plane ticket because they weren't hiring. Oh, he also said, pick the 3rd-rated station, not the number 1 station in the markets. Because there was, at the time, ABC, CBS, and NBC. Fox did not exist at that point. So I picked the 3rd-rated station, which was ABC, and I showed up.
You just walked in.
I called in advance,
Okay.
and I said, I would like to come and interview for a job. And Paul Doogie, the assistant news director, said, we're not hiring. And I said, well, I'm actually going to be there anyway. And he said, sure, we'll see anybody for 10 minutes.
Yeah.
So I bought my ticket. It was $600.
Which is a lot of money.
It was a lot of money back then.
Yeah.
And I was getting paid minimum wage at CBS. And my parents were like, wait, where are you going? Iowa, Ohio? What are you doing? And I said, I have to at least start practicing.
Yeah.
I showed up and I got there and he says to me, I forgot you were coming. I only have 5 minutes. So what do you do?
Did your heart
My
sink?
heart, please, I'd stayed at some motel the night before. I had watched all 3 newscasts and was sitting there flipping in between commercials because this was also before DVRs and I was taking notes. So I thought, do or die, Liz, do or die. And I walked in, I sat down, I saw piles of resume tapes from big markets, St. Louis, people who had already been on the air. And I thought, don't look. I sat down, I looked at him, and before he could even ask me a question, I said, I watched your newscast last night. I thought it was excellent. It was way better than Channel 10. What were they thinking? I started ripping the other guys.
And he liked that. He's like,
He
tell
liked
me
it.
more, Elizabeth.
And then I said, but I do have a question. why didn't you lead with the Lockheed Martin story? Well, the Lockheed Martin story was that it had, the Rockwell International.
I can't believe you remember all these
Yeah,
details.
oh, yeah, I'll never forget it.
Okay.
And he said, well, I said, you didn't lead with Rockwell, which had just gotten the NASA space station contract. And when I landed here, there's a Rockwell plant right here. And he looked annoyed and he said, well, you're right. But, we got a lot of new reporters here. And I said, I'm new. I've never been to Ohio, and I knew it was a story. I'm not here to criticize your people. I'm just here to tell you I'll go head-to-head with any local, and I will beat them. He's like, that's interesting, thanks. And I said, great, so can I meet the news director? And he said, he's busy right now. And I said, I'll wait.
Wow.
And he looked annoyed, but he said, okay, sit over there. I sat in the newsroom. I'm looking around. The minute he walked out, I got up and I started talking to producers, and I'm asking, so what are you leading with? I started throwing around the lexicon of what I had learned. News director walks in. He says, let's go. I sat in the office, and he said, my guy tells me that you pointed out that we missed a story. And I said, yes, I did. I just want you to know that I know how to pronounce the Scioto and Olentangy rivers. I'm not going to mispronounce these things here in Columbus, whereas your guys did last night.
Yep.
And I know you hired new reporters. I'm not ripping your reporters, but I am. And he's looking at me like,
who is this
who
person?
is this?
Right.
I want this person. Oh my God. And he said, listen, I don't have anything available right now. However, I have a reporter who wants to switch to sports. If it happens, maybe I'll give you a call. I fly back home. My answering machine is flashing a little red light.
Stop
and
it.
It's him. And he says, you could sell pearls to an oyster. I want you to come work here.
Wow. And that was your first one. That was the first on that list.
Columbus, Ohio.
Wow.
I was so blown away. I couldn't believe it. And everyone at CBS was cheering me on. And they held me a little Haagen-Dazs party. I filled what I had into my car, shipped my car out, and froze my butt off. I arrived December 27th, all alone, freezing. Never drove in ice storms before.
Right.
I'm a California girl. What do you want from me?
Right.
And I just dove in. And I remember running into somebody from high school who was by then a very successful agent.
Okay.
And at CAA in Hollywood. And he said, did I hear correctly? You're moving to Ohio? Like he was laughing. And I said, yeah. And he said, why would you do that? And I said, you'll know in a few years. Cocky, but you gotta work as hard as you believe it.
But you exuded then, and you do now, a cockiness and a confidence that I feel like so many people are struggling to find within themselves. And I say you have to fake it. Mm-hmm. You deserve to be there if you're there, but like it's definitely an act.
I was faking it, Rebecca, because as my mother says, darling, you cried for a year. I cried constantly. I was so lonely.
Yeah.
I didn't know anybody. I also had never been a television reporter before. So on my first day, they said to me, all right, we're assigning you the story, a piece of a building fell off. Didn't hit anyone. Okay, so this is big news in Columbus, Ohio at the time. But I guess a couple of years earlier, the same thing had happened, and it had hit a councilman, and he had to have his leg amputated. So it was like, what is the building commission doing? Are they not inspecting these buildings?
Right.
Look what happened to this guy a couple of years ago, and still this is happening. I went out there, I got everything. I come back, and I'm staring at, again, pre-computers, I'm staring at the typewriter, and I don't know how to write in a packet. We call them packages, a taped package. And I sat there almost frozen. And Paul, the assistant news director, comes up and said, we need your voice track soon. And I'm like, yeah, I know. And I walked up to one of the producers. Her name was Kelly Felker. And she said, what's up? And I said, Paul's nervous that I'm not ready yet. And she looked at me and she said, I know, I'm not. And I just relaxed. I thought, if I make a mistake, let's do it. I wrote the piece. And then I had to voice track it in a little voice tracking booth, and I didn't know how to do it. So somebody said, hey, Sarah, to another reporter, can you help the new reporter, Liz, you could smoke in the newsroom back then. She's smoking. She looks totally annoyed. She puts down her pen. She walks up and goes, I have to teach you how to do this? Like, you don't know how to do it? Like,
Yeah.
I started in Wheeling, West Virginia. Now I'm in Columbus, and here you've never done it before?
Yeah.
And I was sweet. I said, I'm so sorry to interrupt you. I understand. Instead of saying, God, what a bee, you know?
Yeah.
Guess what? She and I ended up being great friends.
Yeah.
Great friends. But the point was, I went home that night and sobbed. And I said to myself, I'm stuck in Ohio for how long? I signed I had a 2-year contract.
Okay.
And all I'm thinking is, what am I doing here? I've never felt so uncomfortable in my little protected life.
Yeah.
Guess what, everybody? It's supposed to feel that way.
Yeah.
Nobody told me that. I'm telling you, you're lucky. So when you get the rejections and you get the mean people at work who really want to stick their foot out and trip you, or they're just annoyed, I have to help you? Are you kidding? You should know what you're doing by now.
Yeah.
Guess what? Reach back and help that same person when you finally get experienced enough. And I've been in that position to do it since then, and I do it very easily. But I did cry for a year.
Yeah.
And then I re-upped my contract. I became the weekend anchor after they told me, no, you'll never become the weekend anchor. I practiced for weekends over and over again, kept giving the tape to the very guy who said, you'll never do it. Finally, I got so good at my practice tapes, he said, all right, I'll give you a shot when the weekend anchor's off.
Yeah.
I did great. He never let me do it again. People will resent you for being good. It's kind of weird. I would love great people who hit it out of the ballpark. I'm like, great, you can do it from now on. There's a weird thing about some people in this world.
Yeah.
They resent you for not failing.
Correct. Because they have their own failed purposes, and that's the only way they know how to feel better is if, taking satisfaction in your own failure.
But guess what? He ended up leaving. The new guy comes in, and I'm thinking, do I have to do this again?
Right.
Show him all these tapes again? He was totally different. I walked in all nervous with my speech, and I said, I would like a shot. And he said, I'd like to see you on the anchor desk. Sure. When's Carol off?
Yeah.
Well, of course, I would scrutinize the schedule. Carol's off in 3.5 weeks for one day. It's like, okay, I'll tell them to put you on the schedule. Wow. And then I eventually became the weekend anchor.
Wow.
And then it was time to move on.
Yeah.
And it was time to move on because I got fired. In our world, non-renewal of contract is how they put it. New guys come in, they want to hire their own talent. They don't like your hair. They don't like your look. They don't like the way you do it. They just want somebody that they can say, oh, I hired her.
Yeah.
He hadn't hired me. Well, guess what? The anchor at CBS, the old guy who had been there forever, John Schubeck, when I was leaving during that Haagen-Dazs party, he pulled me aside and he said, the first thing I need you to do on your very first day in Columbus is start what's called, can I swear?
Yes.
A fuck you fund. Start saving money for what I call a fuck you fund, because there is going to come a time when they will pull you in and say, you're not wanted here anymore. Don't try to argue with them. They've made up their mind. But say in your mind, that's okay, I got a fuck you fund, and move on. So when I got pulled in, and that news director said, you know what, I just want you to know that Monday there's going to be an ad in broadcasting and cable for a weekend anchor job. And I was so naive. I said, oh, I feel so bad for Mike. Mike was my co-anchor. I thought it was him because he was so inept. He's like, no, it's not for Mike. It's for your job.
Wow.
I mean, you want to talk a gut punch?
Yeah.
And a crack to the solar plexus?
Yeah.
Okay, when that happens to you, take a breath and say, okay, don't argue. They've made their decision.
Yeah.
I said, okay. And he looked at me and he said, okay. And all I can think of is Schubeck told me, fuck you fund. It's okay. It's going to be okay. And I said, yeah, okay. And he said, all right, I know you're done with your story. You can go home if you need to. And I said, no, that's okay. I'll stay in case there's breaking news. Classy. You got to do the classy thing. You don't just throw down your toys and say, I'm leaving.
Right. You can't be a tantruming
You can't,
toddler.
no.
Right.
And because I handled it that way, they let me stay till I found something else, which was very nice.
Yep.
But it didn't take me long. But the only job offer I could find was Cleveland. I'm thinking, can I get out of Ohio now?
Right.
And I thought to myself, oh my God, Cleveland, are you kidding me? I want to go west. I want to get back home.
Yeah.
Cleveland was the best thing that ever happened to me in my entire career.
Wow.
Those anchors in the, now you're in a big market, 13th largest. Those anchors taught me how to be me on television. They were so comfortable, so relaxed. Everything happens for a reason.
Yep.
But
it's incredible that the thing you thought would rock you, right, and be the end was the opening to now what here.
yeah, absolutely. Cleveland, and I promise you, everybody listening, something's going to happen to you. You're going to be disappointed, but how you absorb that shock will come back later to help you.
Yeah.
And I kept saying to myself, I'm going to run into somebody at some point who likes Cleveland, and they're going to be in a decision-making position. And I'm going to be like, go Cleveland Browns, go Tribe, go, let, you know. And I had a great time in Cleveland. And then I went to Boston, and I did great in Boston. And I just was like, okay, now I need to get to the network, because in those early days in Columbus, I would stare in the mirror crying, when am I going to get to the network? And I remember calling an old executive producer from CBS who had then gone to Good Morning America. His name was Bill Cunningham. And I called him up crying. And I said, Bill, am I ever going to get to the network? And he took a pause and he said, Elizabeth, you are in the first 6 weeks of what I hope will be a 60-year-long career.
Right.
Calm the hell down. But it's like that song by Billy Joel, Vienna Waits for You. Slow down, you crazy child. You're so ambitious for a juvenile. Where's the fire? What's the hurry about?
Yep.
You better cool it off before you burn it out. Calm down, everybody.
That gave me chills, because I feel like everyone I meet, and even I can forget, right, how long it takes to build something. And you're talking about a 60-year career. We're going on 20. And it's like, oh my gosh, these people want to be a billionaire in year 2.
My first on-air job was 1987. So I'm in my 35th whatever year.
Wow.
And every day I am fighting to improve and be better. Have I had, again, those gut punches where I was passed up for something I really felt I deserved?
Yeah.
Yeah. Happened 3 months ago.
What happened 3 months ago? Can you talk about it?
It's opportunity that I don't get.
Okay. Why?
Why don't I get the opportunity? Partly my fault, I think. The opportunity, I love coverage, right? I love covering big stories. I like getting out of the anchor set, with the blow-dried hair and the air conditioning. And I like walking around a plant with a CEO. I like going to big events like the Consumer Electronics Show. Fox has been great for me. I went to CNBC after I left Boston. I had no business doing business news, but I needed to get to the network. And again, dive in the water, didn't know how shallow it would be. I'm like, Dad, I don't want to cover the stock market. I don't know anything about that. This was 1998, before the dot-com bubble. And he said, oh, you're gonna realize this was the best move you ever made. Not everybody has a cheerleader or a guiding light like that. My dad was he was my touchstone. He was my compass. He knew nothing about doctors, the worst investors. He's like, Kodak kids. I bought Kodak stock. Meantime, but he knew opportunities are going to fly past you in packages you don't recognize. Grab them. And business news, what?
Yeah.
It was like watching paint dry for me.
Yeah.
I mean, I wanted to be in murders and drug busts and explosions and chocolate festivals,
I like how you go from murders to chocolate festivals.
Oh, yeah. Mayonnaise festivals, Christmas tree lightings. I wanted to do news.
Right.
And nobody would hire me. Local in New York or local in LA. I got really close in LA. Talk about everything happens for a reason. KNBC, my dream station. I was working in Boston. We had 100 inches of snow. We topped 100 inches of snow. So they called and they said, we want a reporter to do that because it's like really hot in LA. Yeah. So they were going to split the screen with one of their reporters at the beach making sandcastles, and then Liz Claman at Logan Airport in like piles of snow.
Yeah.
So I'm like, this is my shot. This is my shot. You get one shot. Do not mess it up, right? And it was like I knew these reporters because I grew up watching them. It was Conan Nolan. And Conan Nolan was standing there, and I said, he's on the beach, and he's like, now over to Liz Claman in Boston, where there are 100 inches of snow. And I'm like, Colin, I hate you. I'm so jealous. Like, we were best friends.
Yeah.
The anchor in KNBC went to the news director after that and said, why can't we get people with personality like hers?
Wow.
News director calls me in. It was like he was going to hire me 100%. Well, the Atlanta Olympics were going on, and a bomb went off at the Atlanta
I remember
Olympics,
that.
right? Yeah, it was horrible. And all the money that they had reserved to hire a new reporter went to sending more crews. And I remember thinking, I can't catch a break.
Right.
Guess what?
What?
Best thing that ever happened. Because I went directly to CNBC, which changed my life.
Wow.
I ended up loving business news, interviewing Warren Buffett, the most powerful people in the world, Bill Gates, Eric Schmidt, who was running Google, Howard Schultz of Starbucks, all these incredible people. And I'm just so amazed that package flew past me. It was the only offer I got, CNBC.
Yep.
Like, wait, I don't know the stock market. Tough, start learning, fake it till you make it.
Yep.
And then I was there for 9 years.
Wow.
They hired me for 13 weeks. I quit everything in Boston. I was like, wait, I have to give up my parking? I'm from LA. I'm a Jew from LA. All we care about is not where you sat at the Laker game. Where'd you park?
Exactly.
Did you get preferred parking?
Right.
I gave it up, and I took that chance, and I stretched 13 weeks to 9 years. And then, out of the blue, I decided I don't want to be here anymore.
Yeah.
I'm done with business news. But Fox was just starting business news, and they're like, no, you're not done. We want you. The one thing I hadn't done in my career was a startup.
It's funny that you'll call Fox News a startup, but I guess everyone had their beginnings.
That's how smart you are. So Fox Business was a startup,
Right.
but I wasn't crazy. I didn't go to some fly-by-night operation. It had the Fox brand behind it, but the way Fox is, they were like, you cannot lean on Fox News. Fox News came from nothing, and that's why it's so strong today, because it built from the ground up. You can't use their video. In fact, they used a totally different video system. We went HD first before they did, and so we couldn't use anything of theirs. There was a wall between us. You couldn't ask for their help because they had started off sitting on orange crates because they couldn't afford desks.
Right. Right.
And we started the same way, and it was awesome.
Yeah.
And that was 16 years ago.
Wow. Crazy. So talk me through getting the Claman Countdown.
That was not easy.
Yeah.
I shed a lot of tears. So when I got hired at Fox, they hired me to do the 2, the 3, and the 4 o'clock because they didn't have any. They're like
AM or PM?
During the day.
Okay.
Right, 2 p.m. So the 3 hours in the afternoon building up to that final hour of trade. I had been doing the 5 to 7 a.m. at CNBC. Then I did the 10 a.m., had the number 1 show at 10 a.m. I also did the 4. I worked a split shift because I really wanted to be in the afternoon so that people on the West Coast could see me, my family.
Yeah.
And they're like, yeah, but you're too strong in the morning. I said, I'll do both.
Wow.
So for several years through 2 pregnancies, I did 5 to 7 a.m. I'd go home and sleep and then come back at 2 to do the 4.
Wow.
Guys, you're supposed to work your tail off.
Did you say, well, can I have more money because I'm doing 2 shows?
Nope.
It's out of my job description.
Nope. Okay. Never asked for more. In fact, they kept giving me promotions, and my agent at the time was like, don't ask for more money. It's opportunity. And I'm like, dude, he was right.
Yeah.
Opportunity. And I gave that up I gave the green currency up for a different kind of currency, which was chance, that opportunity to do it. And it got me on the afternoon radar of everybody in business news.
Yep.
So when I got to Fox, I was going to be a prominent anchor. They were really excited to have me. They were really supportive. And I was doing these 3 hours, and then the financial crisis hit. So they canceled the 4 o'clock, which was this fun show at the Bull and Bear Bar down, in Midtown. And they're like, it's too light. We got to be serious. So I was doing 4 hours.
Oh, my God.
No more money to do an extra hour.
Right.
Just be quiet. This is a great chance.
Right.
We were like an airplane riveting the wings on mid-flight.
Yeah.
We were not ready. We just launched. And I'll never forget those times, and it was just fantastic. But several years in, I turned around and I noticed that every male anchored show got their name in the title. I was doing the 3 p.m. solo. So it was Varney and Company, Cavuto Coast to Coast, Lou Dobbs Tonight. And then it was Countdown to the Closing Bell.
So fucked up.
With Liz Claman.
Okay.
And I was like, okay. So when it was time to renegotiate my contract, they said, oh, there's no money. That's the starting point of a new contract. There's no money. What else do you want? I said, okay, I got something that to me counts even more. I would like my name in the title. Oh, sure. The people negotiated were like, sure, no problem. And then I came up with all these ideas of names, but the person who's no longer here, who was running the business network, just didn't want to do it.
Did you ever find out why?
There are things that happen to you in your career and you'll never understand them.
Yeah.
I chalk it up to people who don't have a lot of power like to lord over the little bit of real estate they actually have.
Yeah.
I think there was some concern and insecurity that this was the most business-focused show on the network, and they needed it to remain that way. And the closing bell was really important, that term. So I was like, well, it was Countdown to the Closing Bell. How about, and I came up with 13 ideas. I only gave them 7, and I shoved the one I wanted the most in the middle, because if you put it at the top, they'll reject it right away. Because I think that's the one you want. So I did Liz Claman Live, Claman's Countdown, da-da-da-da-da, on and on. Rejected all of them. So I had another 6 that my team and I put together in my pocket. Rejects those too. Like, what's going on here? This is in my contract. I decided to do something that they always say don't do. Go to somebody above that person. But it was also a woman, and I hadn't really met her.
The person above was a woman.
Correct.
Okay.
And somebody had suggested, you should go talk to Lauren Pedersen. Lauren Pedersen is a genius at programming and marketing here. I went to talk to her, and I said, so I have it in my contract, and she's like, what's the problem here? Let's do this.
Wow.
Boom. What name do you want? The Claman Countdown. Done.
Wow.
But it took months.
And you had to keep pursuing it after
I had
rejection.
To keep pursuing it. Yeah. In fact, it was put to me as, can you do me a favor and not pursue this? Now, when your boss asks you to do you a favor and not pursue it,
Yeah.
I said, well, why? And he said, because I need this show to not change because it's really highly rated and it's really important. I'm like, it's a name.
Yeah.
The substance is still going to be the same. But again, when you are up against a wall, go around the side.
Yeah.
Guess what? They put a fence on the side, start digging a hole underneath.
Yeah.
That gets blocked, go around to the basement window and climb in.
Or just throw a bomb and blow open a wall.
That's right. Just blow it. But look, sometimes you have to leave. I did hit a ceiling hard at CNBC. They weren't letting me do the big events that I wanted to do, but it was only because I hadn't, quote, been there as long as the others. Mm-hmm. I don't like places that aren't a meritocracy. When you're the fastest runner, you should be allowed to win. Mm-hmm. I had the highest ratings. I landed Warren Buffett. I landed Bill Gates. I landed the biggest guests, and they were telling me, no, we don't want to upset this person because they've been here longer. And I was like, okay, I'm leaving.
Yeah.
Sometimes you have to leave. You have to pull the parachute string and just go.
I have a friend who left at a huge company at the height because she was running into the same thing you're running into. And she was like, I'm leaving. I've tried everything and bigger and better somewhere else.
Yeah. And guess what? You hope that they'll say, okay, no, stay.
Right.
No, they don't.
Right.
Sometimes they don't.
Right.
And that's okay. It's the best decision I ever made.
Wow.
I never once have looked back and said, God, I miss CNBC. They had better toys. They had better equipment. They had better charts when we started. But I was like with the Sons of Liberty fighting against the British.
Yeah.
And we know how that story ended.
Right. I was ironically I came from my factory that we started here with, and I hadn't been there in 10 years. And so I just remember, I was like, these were the good old days, and we would ship the bags ourselves and pick the leather and work with the pattern maker. And it just like, that was really hard, but I was so happy being in that space again. I think
Jeff Bezos talks about when he was just selling books at Amazon.
Yeah.
And he remembers carrying piles of books to the post office and thinking, God, I can't wait till we make enough money to buy a little forklift.
Oh my God.
Can you believe that? But that's the thing. We can all sit around and say, help me, or why not me, or this isn't fair. But we have it in our hands to mold our life.
Mm-hmm.
We get one shot
Yep.
at this life. And what are you going to do? Are you going to mold it and work your fingers to the bone, or are you going to sit back and wait till you die? It's not a dress rehearsal. This is it, everybody. And I come in every day thinking, what can I do to be better? I never sit there and go, yeah, I'm the best. Never. I do have a little bit of that, I suck. Do you ever say that to yourself? Like you look at other people's, oh, I suck.
Yeah.
Sometimes I say that to myself, and it's not a great thing to say, but I do believe that part of it has kept me constantly reaching beyond my grasp.
Yep. Yep. I think it's the people that are like, I have the biggest ego, I'm incredible at everything, that stop seeking that north.
How many people said to you, honey, the fashion industry, you're not from Manhattan. What do you're going to, wait, what? How are you going to do that?
Yeah.
There's Calvin Klein, Dior, all these people who are way ahead of you. Yes, so what? Yeah. Watch me.
Yeah.
And then, this is really important, tune out everybody who doesn't believe in your dream or mission.
Yep.
That may also include your family.
Yep. Yep.
I got lucky. My family was like, oh, yay, you did a story about a cow that was abducted from a farm and ended up in a stream because some frat boys were playing around in Ohio. My family was like, that's amazing. And meantime, I'm sitting there watching the Persian Gulf War going, why aren't I there?
Oh my gosh. I felt like you've given, like I was going to ask you for some advice, which I end all my podcasts with, but you literally dropped so many pearls of incredible advice that I feel like is going to be so helpful to so many. And I'm grateful that you're giving me this time.
You're an inspiration to me because you had no one there saying, here, let me help you. Right. I mean, nobody's going to pull you up onto the gravy train and say, here, let me help you up. No, a gravy train's crowded.
Right.
And they're going to kick you off as best they can.
Yeah.
You have to fight for it. And by the way, every time that you feel like crying or you feel awful about it, you're supposed to feel that way. So embrace it.
Yeah.
It means you're in it. It means you are in the game. Your fingers should be bleeding. Your nails should be broken from trying to climb.
Yep.
That's how it works.
That's how it works. It's not the news we want, but it's how it works.
And it feels so good at the end, then you can tell. But there's never an end, right? I mean, You're not finished. I'm not finished.
No. So you're in this for 23 more years?
Oh, yeah. Why not?
Yeah.
Why not? I see men at 75, 76.
Yeah.
Still out there doing it. I love what I do. If I didn't, I would stop and do something else.
Yeah.
But I happen to walk in every day going, I love this.
Yeah, and you feel it.
Yeah.
So for my listeners, where do they watch you, find you, follow you?
3 p.m. Eastern, Monday through Friday on the Fox Business Network. And if you don't have it, call your cable provider and demand it. We also stream, but listen, I'll take anything. I just love when people watch or DVR and reach out. And then we have the podcast, which we started 4 years ago.
Everyone talks to Liz.
Yeah, it was me and my assistant. And I said, can I do a podcast? That's what I love about Fox. They're like, sure, we can't help you or give you any resources, but go for it. And we are now in the top 5% of all podcasts.
Holy shit. That's a big deal. That's
Girl,
a crowded market. One more.
Bitches, let's go.
Let's go.
And I'm talking about somebody who, I mean, really was shy and...
You'd never know, Liz. Ever.
Well, if you want something badly enough, go against your own grain and train yourself to do it.
Yep. Smart.
Yeah.
Thank you so much.
Oh, my pleasure. I really appreciate it.
I just wanted to thank you guys for for listening to today's episode. I also want to ask you to rate and review the show wherever you listen to podcasts. I know it's a pain in the butt, but it actually helps with search and algorithms. So if you love this podcast, it is an easy way to get it more visible and out there. I also want you to follow me on Instagram at Rebecca Minkoff, at RM Superwomen, and be sure to check out my book, Fearless, The New Rules for Unlocking Creativity, Courage, and Success. Thank you again, and you will hear from me next week.